Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the September meeting, September 2021 meeting for Gungahlin Community Council. We're still in a COVID lockdown, so it's good to see a good number, a couple of dozen people already connected on the Zoom session, and an unknown number on the Facebook Live, and we appreciate that greatly. I'll not waste too much time before I jump into a short summary of the agenda tonight and an overview of what's been going on with the Community Council. So let me just get that underway as soon as I can. The Community Council meeting this week, well, obviously none of us are here in person. But we are being live streamed on Facebook Live, and that's being recorded. So a video of this this Zoom session will end up appearing on Facebook as a record of the meeting. The agenda for this night tonight, there'll be a short update that I'll present. I'm Peter Elford, President of the Community Council. Short update on activities the Community Council's been involved in, and then we'll have a segment around what's happening with the education and schools situation in Gungahlin, and the ACT Education Director will be leading that. Until quite recently, we were also expecting Yvette Berry, the Minister for Education, and the Deputy Chief Minister to be attending. But as I'm sure you're all aware, there are many calls on her time at the moment, and she's been unable to join us, so we'll be led through that by the Education Directorate. Then we'll have an update on the Home of Football. This is a big project in the northeastern corner of Gungahlin, abutting Throsby, and a lot of noise made about this announcement 18 months ago, and it's good to hear that we'll get an update on where that's going and how that how our residents can get involved in what's going on there. Icon Water will provide a short update on activities they've had in Gungahlin, and hopefully they'll reveal one of the great secrets I got to enjoy recently while out for a bike ride. And then we'll have Lorelei Baum from Lendlease talking about Lendlease's recent completion of the acquisition of the Gold Creek Homestead Precinct site and what they're planning to do on that location. So without further ado, I'll just press on to the GCC update. It has actually been, along with everything else in Canberra, a pretty quiet month. We still have our call to suspend land sales in the Gungahlin Town Centre until a number of actions are undertaken. Many of the actions are pending the results of an inquiry into draft variation 364, which is some changes to the Town Centre Precinct Code, which is being undertaken by a standing committee of the ACT Assembly, and there continues to be work in that inquiry. We've spoken with the Suburban Land Agency on a new approach to land sales and community engagement for blocks in the town centre, which they have committed to, but that engagement has been postponed due to the COVID pandemic lockdown. Similarly, the ACT budget, which was due out at the end of August, in fact, would have been out last week, that's been postponed until October, and the smart money I've heard is betting on the 6th of October, but I think the official date is somewhere in October. So those major events we continue to track pretty closely. The assessment of community facilities in Gungahlin, we continue to try and uncover the rationale behind the proposed 24,000 square metres of commercial space and 100 new residences in the land opposite the Casey Group Centre, which most residents, including in that area, and including the owners of the Casey Group Centre, understood was to be used for community use. And so we're sort of trying to work out what that's all about. But I'll give you a bit of an insight as to some of the, what appears to be some of the government angles on that in a moment. And we've spent quite a lot of time involved with the reform of the ACT planning system, which you may have read about in the media, where the Minister and the Chief Planner have indicated the current planning system has a lot of problems, And we at the Community Council participated in some strategy and planning workshops at a district level, a series of meetings called the Working Series, which brings together one set of stakeholders, and the Environment Planning Forum, which brings together a different set of stakeholders. It was at one of the EPF or Environment Planning Forum meetings on the 28th of June that we were given the opportunity to put some questions in writing to the Planning Minister. That's at the EPF, not the EPG. We finally got some answers in August, which we've posted on our website, and I'd encourage people to have a look at. To say the responses to those questions are disappointing is probably an understatement. I mentioned that the Gold Creek Homestead developer was formally announced. Land lease was a week or two ago, and we've kicked off some of the work to get Gungahlin's Celebrate Gungahlin Festival underway, which we're looking to land sometime in 2022 in partnership with a whole bunch of other community organisations in Gungahlin. Just to turn to that piece around the sites in Casey, if you look at this map was provided as part of the district planning workshops. It's a consolidated policy map for Gungahlin. And I guess the key things you should note here are the major transport route, which is light rail, the local and group centres and town centre, which the L, Gs and Ts on the map. But perhaps most significantly are these areas marked with dotted grey outlines, centred on Casey, the Gungahlin Town Centre, and down through the light rail corridor. These are identified as urban intensification areas in the 2018 ACT government strategy. And it's possibly one of the things driving the objective of having more commercial development and more residential in Casey, although I still think the case for that it has not been made, particularly given that those sites, which are kind of shown in this dotted blue outline here, really have always been sort of penciled in as community use. The blue areas, just for those who are trying to read the details, meant to indicate employment sites. And of course, that is one of the biggest issues we've identified in the town centre, is that we really don't have that centre of employment in the town centre, or more broadly in Gungahlin. But that policy map was one of 2 or 3 maps provided as input to the district planning process. And coming out of the district workshops, a listening report's been produced, which identified some key themes aligned to the key themes of the ACT Planning Strategy 2018. So the key themes in the strategy are things like, the first 2 of the 5 of those themes are livable and diverse. And the key messages that came out of the workshops were this focus on creating schools, having a range of housing choices, particularly for older generations, parks and playgrounds, more green space, more sports and recreational space, and improving more diverse and affordable housing options, but generally planned better, as well as these additional comments around enhancing trends of green space, additional community spaces, creating more commercial spaces that generate employment, and including plans for natural ponds. There are some very common themes or common messages that came through in the workshop around all of these topics from the 2018 strategies: a livable and diverse, things about the importance of green space, recreational space, and employment. Around cycleways, unsurprisingly, creating more off-road cycleways and more ways to engage in Gungahlin on bike and other active travel methods like scooters and walking. Lots of feedback on the roads and traffic, particularly around duplications of major trunk roads. Again, this message around employment, and those themes got played out again. Focus on education, playgrounds and parks, roads and traffic, again around the heading of compact and efficient. And then finally around sustainable and resilient, again a focus on protecting open spaces, basic infrastructure, keeping pace with residential development, and incorporating more sustainable housing, including solar and light-coloured roofs and so on. And one of the other comments there was preserving and maintaining existing water bodies such as Yurubi ponds, which has its own agenda. So I provide that as I think a useful insight into the 2 or 3 dozen in-person people who attended the workshop and the unknown number of people who provided feedback online that will guide this district planning element of the new territory planning system, and exactly how that plays out and how it will be enforced and made to work are all works in progress. So we look forward to seeing how that plays out. And just that's kind of the end of the GCC update. I just want to again flag that Mick Gentleman, the Minister for Planning, who we've invited to the Community Council meetings pretty much every month for the last 6 to 8 months, has indicated he will attend on our meeting on the 13th of October. And we're looking forward to raising some of our concerns around the town centre and those issues we just saw with him when he attends. So put that one down on the calendars and let's get a good crowd along. All right, well, that completes the Gungahlin the GCC update. If there are any questions on any of the matters I've raised, please let me know. Are there any questions? Anybody interested in raising a hand or putting a comment in the chat window? Nope. Okay. All right. Well, Joe, are you online, or is any of the other, who is leading off the education directorate?
Hi, Peter. I'm happy to do that. Vanessa here.
Great. Did you want me to run the slides and you just...
Have you got them there? That would be great. Thank you.
I do. Just the magic of keystrokes and where are we? Where are we? Yep, there we are. Share the screen. Share the screen. And there we go.
Fantastic. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to start by acknowledging we're meeting on the lands of the Ngunnawal people and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging for the continuing contribution they make to the life of this city, the land and the region, and also acknowledge any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are with us this evening. My name is Vanessa Attridge. I'm the Executive Branch Manager, Enrolments and Planning at the Education Directorate, and I'm joined by my colleague Andrew Parkinson, Executive Branch Manager, Infrastructure and Capital Works, and Andrew will also jump in at various points as we go through this presentation. So thank you for the opportunity to join you tonight. We'll take you through a few slides to share some information about ACT Public Schools planning and maintenance in the Gungahlin region. Okay, let's head to the next slide.
I think you're on the last slide, Peter.
Oh, that's annoying.
Oh, yes.
Okay, just with me. I'll just type that. And we'll go to here. Thank you.
Great. Perfect. That's slide 2. Thanks so much. So in terms of growth, in 2003, there were nearly 41,000 students in ACT public schools across preschool to year 12. We didn't reach that many students in our system again for another 10 years until 2013. The same factors that drove the strong growth in student numbers between 2010 and 2020 will continue over the coming decade. And in 2021, this year, enrolments will increase by over 10,000 students, or by around 25% more than we had in 2013. Jumping on to the next slide, in terms of affiliation, in 2010, the overall kindergarten to year 12 ACT public school affiliation rate was 57%. And in 2021, overall public school affiliation was 61%, 61.3. So that equates to a movement of 4% of total student numbers towards the public school system. And in the established areas of Canberra, nearly all of the growth in children is going to public schools. Next slide, thanks. The ACT is experiencing high levels of residential construction-led population and student enrolment growth. So when planning for future schools in specific regions, we also consider any building approvals and planned residential projects in the development pipeline. That helps us predict the number of dwellings and anticipated school-aged children. Gungahlin has experienced rapid population and student enrolment growth, reflecting the pace of its residential building activity.
Peter, can you go back about 2 slides? Sorry, it's jumped ahead of where Nessa is talking.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at my notes. Thank you, Andrew.
Go back one more.
Again. Yes, great. Thank you. So over the past decade, students from Gungahlin in the public system has more than doubled. And this has meant that despite the ongoing investment to increase public school capacity, the continuing high pace of development and new greenfield releases, combined with high public education affiliation rates, particularly in greenfield suburbs like Moncrief and Taylor, a number of schools, particularly in the northern end of Gungahlin, are now facing enrolment pressure. Next slide. Great. So the Education Directorate undertakes demand response planning in advance of significant capacity pressure. And this ensures necessary future infrastructure needs are identified, planned for, funded and built in the right place, ready for use at the time that they're required. And this also requires us to take into account the long-term, multi-decade demographic life cycle of a catchment area. And we're seeing signs of the demographic life cycle moving through in areas such as Tuggeranong, which is now seeing new families moving into the area who enter the school system and continue through it. Many parts of Canberra are experiencing that demographic life cycle. However, it's unique to each region and area, and a range of factors influence it. Gungahlin, for instance, has a relatively young demographic profile with a high number of families, which means public school enrolments will continue to grow over the coming decade. And the same demographic pattern is now also being experienced in the Molonglo region. We take a regional approach to planning, and through a regional approach, we can consider the needs, growth and capacity of each school individually, as well as within the region collectively. And that allows us to test and design effective long-term responses that maximise capacity of the overall region and best respond to future growth while we also take into account the individual circumstances of individual schools. And all of this work is underpinned by our forecasting and modelling capability. We have a strategic partnership with the Australian National University School of Demography, which has delivered a cutting-edge multi-regional enrolment projection model and provided valuable demographic advice to the Directorate. And including the ANU in our projections work and demographic analysis means we have a high level of integrity in our enrolment projections, and those form a key input into schools planning from which investment decisions and planning responses are confirmed. It also gives the community a high level of trust in the ACT government's ability to plan to meet enrolment growth as the population grows. Next slide.
No, I think you're on the right slide.
Just back one. Perfect, thank you. Enrolment projections are an important measure for understanding and predicting future enrolment demand. Enrolment projections at Directorate involves a cohort transition approach, which is based on tracking births within an area, allocating them to a local primary school and tracking them through as they graduate from high school and into college. It takes into account the preference for public schooling based on historical experience, the features of the catchment area and any underlying demographics. Our model is continually updated to take into account current enrolment trends and other new information where that becomes available. And more sophisticated custom modelling is also undertaken at a suburb level, where we can include the individual and unique circumstances of a region and develop custom scenarios to test planning responses. It's important to note that enrolment projections are only a point in time reference. They don't necessarily reflect planned enrolment policy shifts, future investments or planning responses. So while they're an important schools planning input, considering enrolment projections in isolation of those broader inputs doesn't provide an accurate representation of planning to ensure the balance of enrolment supply and demand. In this presentation, we're providing an overview of a range of the inputs into schools planning, and along with enrolment projections taken together, all of those inputs provide a greater level of accuracy, prediction, and informed scenario planning. Okay, next slide, please, Peter. So our range of inputs. In the first instance, these include non-infrastructure solutions such as enrolment policy changes to schools to limit out-of-area enrolments in capacity-constrained schools or areas, such as changing from Category B to Category A schools, New South Wales pathway schools, and changes to priority enrolment areas. Gungahlin now has low out-of-area enrolments, and New South Wales student enrolments have also been significantly reduced in recent years. Transportable infrastructure gives us an important source of flexibility for schools that are experiencing temporary growth, and they're part of the schools planning response in every state and territory in Australia. They also provide time to plan for and deliver permanent investment in capacity where it's needed for the longer term. Modern transportable classrooms are different to those of the past. They're highly rated by students and teachers. They're comfortable, they have inviting climate-controlled learning environments, fully insulated, meeting current energy targets. And there's a nice example of some of those at Majura Primary School in the inner north, which have sustainable building materials, Australian manufactured insulated wall and floor panels, composite decking, which is made from recycled plastic and waste timber product, and double glazed windows. They can be powered by rooftop solar and battery energy storage. So lots of positives and benefits. Many schools choose to retain their transportable classrooms past an enrolment peak for use as other valued learning spaces. Permanent expansions are only considered where enrolment growth is projected to continue in future years and where additional permanent capacity is the most appropriate response. Where schools are forecast to reach a utilisation rate of around 85%, and where that's expected to continue for prolonged periods, planning for longer term solutions is necessary. Some schools are able to operate comfortably at higher levels of utilisation, for example, high schools and colleges, due to the range of specialist facilities available at those sites, in addition to general learning areas, although it is unique for each school. That approach is considered best practice as it provides the flexibility to offer a full curriculum, as well as to make reasonable adjustments to meet the needs of students. And utilisation planning also takes into account the government's class size policy, which recognises the contribution class sizes make to learning outcomes. And that's a significant variable in determining the effective usable capacity of a school and consequently the need for investment. New schools are appropriate where enrolment projections demonstrate ongoing and sustained population growth, which will in turn sustain the viability of a new school over the longer term. The overall school infrastructure program is designed on the basis of addressing significant sustained changes to enrolment and demographic trends on this regional basis. And an important part of our planning process is, of course, engaging regularly with stakeholders, which include the ACT Council of Parents and Citizens Associations, P&C committees, boards of schools, representative community groups, Independent Schools Association, Catholic Education Office, to name a few. And that work is in addition to analysis, feasibility, demand, and planning work underway to plan for and deliver timely new and expanded school capacity that responds to enrolment growth in the regions. That work isn't always visible to the community when it's in the planning and development stages, and shortly we'll talk to some of the timing and context behind that. On to the next slide. Thank you, Peter. Great. This slide gives you an example of a non-infrastructure solution through the recent shared priority enrolment area change for college-age students in Gungahlin. And this change means that families who reside in Gungahlin can now also choose to enrol at Dixon College. Given this new PEA shared zone will come into effect for 2022 enrolments, we'll need some time to monitor the impact of this change on enrolments and confirm the effect that that has on demand management. And just a note that all ACT students continue to be guaranteed enrolment at their local priority enrolment area school. Great, on to the next slide. Excuse me, when we'll hear from Andrew for a wee bit.
Okay, so I'll give Nessa a bit of a break for a moment. So my name's Andrew Parkinson. I'm the Executive Branch Manager of Infrastructure and Capital Works in the Directorate. So my branch looks after the delivery and the design delivery of new schools and the infrastructure responses we've been talking about. So very broadly, there are three streams of infrastructure responses after we've done the planning responses Vanessa was talking about. So firstly, repairs and maintenance. So this is just those small activities that take place in all schools every day, okay? So this is the management of hazardous materials. This is the small little activities that take place. Just make those smaller upgrades and fixes to the existing schools and make our best use of our available spaces. Generally, this is a shared responsibility. Schools do a lot of this work, but also the staff within the Education Support Office or ICW do this on behalf. We have a particular role in compliance issues such as hazardous materials, as well as the safety systems in every school, you know, fire alarms, smoke alarms, fire extinguishers, and all that sort of stuff there. So we make sure that the school's compliance activities are dealt with centrally and funded, and no school ever runs out of money to do that sort of stuff. So the next stream of work is what we call the Public Schools Infrastructure Upgrades Program. Gets a bunch of names, CUP, PSIU. It's generally the upgrades piece here. So this is about where we do work on activities like inclusion works. We'll go and make accessible pathways in existing schools. We'll do renovations on existing classrooms. We'll pull out the old windows, not so many of them in Gungahlin, but certainly in other parts of the territory, pull out the old windows and replace them with new double glazed ones to make the buildings more thermally efficient and keep the kids comfortable in their learning environments. Safety and security upgrades. We are constantly making small upgrades and adjustments to our existing schools to make them better suited for the current needs of the students who are enrolled at that school. So we deal with the particular needs of the student body at that time, and you know, some years later we may undo a piece of work that we've done to do a bit of work to better suit the current kids in that school there. These activities are prioritised on a basis of need, where we see programs to increase energy efficiency, as well as government and school priorities. So we will talk to the schools, get their input into what they think is important in that upgrade works, and then allocate funding from within an overall envelope of money to do those upgrade works. You'll see a lot of ministerial commitments will come out of this stream of response, as well as the priorities that the school boards identify will get funded from public schools infrastructure upgrades. The third stream is what we call major works. So this is the construction of new schools and major expansions. So these are the actual budget funded pieces of work. So every project in a major works is part of a budget initiative. It's part of a decision of government to commit capital funds. There's been many programs in Gungahlin over years. So More Places for Gungahlin was named one of the programs. The current projects are things like the new Peter Six School that we're building in Throsby, the expansions, the 200 place expansions happening at both Gold Creek and Amaroo, as well as in the near future, you'll start seeing major expansions at Margaret Henry School, as well as new high schools being built in both Kenny and Taylor. So I think that's ding on that slide. And back to Nessa.
Great, thank you. Love the ding. So identifying the need for additional capacity and confirming planning responses is only the start of the infrastructure delivery process. The timeframe between identifying the need for a school and a new school opening can be up to 5 years. The process includes budget processes, feasibility, design, master planning, procurement, lease acquisition, planning variations, consultation, and construction stages. And this slide is intended to give you a sense of these elements within that timeline. And at different stages, obviously, for a project, the directorate is at a different point on this timeline. The time varies considerably between projects depending on the planning and construction approach. School builds and upgrades can take around 1 to up to 4 years from approval to completion. Consultation with stakeholders is built into various stages of this process, progressing once the needs of the broader community have been incorporated. Planning considerations include the interaction with existing transport and social infrastructure, active travel networks, and proximity to other community facilities such as libraries, playgrounds, gymnasiums, and outdoor sporting fields. The process can be particularly challenging in established city areas where availability of vacant and buildable land is more limited. And the Education Directorate is also mindful of the need to consider the views of the community and stakeholders, which often includes community sentiment to retain suburban areas in their existing form. This may mean in the future buildings with a relatively smaller footprint or more compact design could be considered in infill areas. And another way that can be achieved is through shared community recreation facilities or sharing open space. And that's a key objective of the Future of Education strategy. And all of our new schools are being built with this intention in mind to create that greater benefit and access for the local community. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. We've also looked to examples of compact and infill school building in other states and territories, such as Victoria and New South Wales, where schools planning and compact builds are occurring, although those regions have much higher land costs and population densities than the ACT, of course. On to the next slide. Thank you, Peter.
Okay, so I think, as Nessa talked about, we have a long-term timeline about how we develop new schools. So that's informed by the ACT Infrastructure Plan. So the ACT Infrastructure Plan was launched in 2019, and it sets out a pipeline of planning investment across all the infrastructure areas, so not just schools, to make sure that the city has the supporting infrastructure that responds to population growth. The infrastructure plan sets out these objectives on the screen for the priorities for education infrastructure. So we've talked about a few of these items, but new schools to meet demand, renewing aging infrastructure, facilities to support students with complex needs and challenging behaviours, ICT, very important for the government. The next one, reducing emissions and pursuing environmental sustainability, managing the legacy of hazardous materials, which are present across the overwhelming majority of our existing school network, and improving issues about school safety such as car parking and traffic management, and security related infrastructure such as our fences. So ding. At the moment, there's work going on at the moment to update the infrastructure plan. Had asked me this question a bit over a month ago, I would have said we're going to update the infrastructure plan this year. As Peter mentioned, we don't have a budget yet. All those timelines are a little bit up in the air. So I'll just say that the infrastructure plan is being reviewed, and we'll find out what the timeline is when we get there. Hopefully we'll get through lockdown and get to that piece of work. But give you the snapshot of what we're doing out of the infrastructure plan at the moment there. So we've got a couple of major things underway at the moment that are planned to open next year. I'm sure someone's going to ask me a question about that after this, but at the moment there's an expansion happening at Franklin, so 450 additional places at Franklin, where we're expanding the ECS school out to a full P to 6 school, or ECS to 6 school. The 200 place expansion at Gold Creek, which started just before we went into lockdown. There's a expansion happening at Amaroo School at the moment. You can actually see that one. The frames are up, so there's a visible work happening there. And of course, if you're over at Throsby, you'll see the brand new P to 6 school really popping out of the ground there at the moment, and give you some sort of idea of the size of that facility and the level of new community activity facilities that have taken place there. So that's the 2022 opening list. 2023, so year out, a new, what we call the new East Gungahlin High School in Kenny. It will have a name like Throsby. Those schools will get named at some point, but at the moment, East Gungahlin High School Kenny for 800 students. The other piece of work that we're just starting on in terms of tendering, that sort of stuff there, is the expansion of Margaret Hendry Primary School. We're planning an expansion, or building an expansion soon, of up to additional 600 places in that school. So if you know the site, it'll take place immediately to the west of the existing school building. Now, That's for 2023. Next door to Margaret Henry will be a new North Gungahlin High School. So again, in Taylor, further around the street, and separate school located next door to Margaret Henry, and that will have a design capacity of 800 students. So you see we've got a fair chunk of work coming up at the moment, and we will be working through those ones, and then also looking our way through in that planning cycle that we saw before about what the next investments look like after that. So, ding to the next one.
Thank you. So on early childhood education and care, accordingly to the levels of population growth we're seeing in Gungahlin, Gungahlin has a higher population of children aged 0 to 5, and we're giving further consideration to the early childhood education care needs in the region as demand for ECEC places grows. On to the next slide. We're getting close to the end. Thank you. I've mentioned how broader school planning takes into account the needs of the Gungahlin community. The Future of Education strategy outlines the plan for education in the ACT within this decade. It's informed by deep community consultation and is based on 4 foundations and 4 principles for implementation that form a roadmap for the future. Positive partnerships between community organisations and schools can contribute to strong relationships and improved student learning. And community use of school facilities is a key priority for the government. The Directorate encourages members of the local community and education groups to access school facilities when they're available. Next slide. Thank you. Great. So this is our final slide. It brings us to the end of the presentation. Thank you for the opportunity to do this sharing with you. We're happy to take some questions if there's time for that.
So Nessa, I might just grab, there's some questions that have been popped up in the chat coming through. People have asked about Throsby. So Throsby is on, well, sorry, before we go into lockdown, Throsby was on track to be delivered in time for next school year. Throsby construction has restarted, and at this point we are working our way through, and we expect to have a school opening in Throsby for the start of next school year. That's fingers crossed, weather permitting, no more COVID lockdowns and all that sort of stuff there, but we are strongly focused on making sure that we have a viable school building open for the start of next school year, so that those students who will start their educational journey in that school have a school to go to. There is no disruption. They're in a finished learning community with school admin and all that sort of, you know, infrastructure that supports those students' journey, that start of that student's learning journey throughout that. It's going to be hard work, but our dedication is, our goal is that we're going to get there for that one. And there may be, you know, bits of the school that aren't built, but there will be a viable school for the students to start at that site.
Thanks very much, Andrew. David Pollard has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vanessa and Andrew, for all that. That was very informative. The college capacity is something that's obviously been on everybody's minds up here for a long time. I see the opening the enrolment area to include Dixon College. That's part of the solution. But with the amount of high school places that we're building at the moment, surely there's more to come in the space of college capacity. Noting that there's a multi-year lead in, but also this wave is surely about to hit college. What can you tell us about where college capacity planning is going? And also in particular, has there been any consideration to providing opportunities for the International Baccalaureate Diploma in Gungahlin?
Thanks, David. I'd have to take the IB question on notice. I'm not aware of the answer for that one, sorry, so we can try to find that information for you. But in terms of college capacity in Gungahlin and on the northern side of Canberra, look, we are aware that we'll need more capacity in the future because, as you mentioned, those students will be entering high school, and we know that high school leads to college and carries through, and our enrolment projections support us to monitor and anticipate what those numbers are likely to be, where those people live, and then accordingly where they'll need to go to college. There was a $50 million election commitment last year arising from the ACT Legislative Assembly election to look into Northside College capacity and solutions for the region. So that's certainly a piece of work that we're doing at the moment to consider what the most appropriate response will be. And in the meantime, opening up this priority enrolment area shared zone between Gungahlin and Dickson just allows a little bit of flow through and a bit of demand management in the meantime while that planning work takes place. So we hope to have more to say on that very soon.
No worries, thanks. Yeah, the Dickson College enrollment area, I think, is going to be a good solution for some people. It's most certainly not for my family, but that's fine. Not everything has to suit every person. So no, I think it is a good step, but there's still more to come there. I still do have 6 or 7 years before college is a concern for me, so take your time.
Yeah, no, it's a very common topic that comes up, and you just do the simple math. If you compare any other district with Gungahlin in terms of number of colleges, if not maybe college seats, it's clearly something that needs to be in the pipeline soon, and maybe the infrastructure plan will have that pretty high up the list, Andrew.
Sorry, just one more on that. Is it possible to get something about the International Baccalaureate mentioned back through GCC?
I can certainly chase that, David.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks you. Terence Palmer from Throsby.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. Just a very quick one. Has any consideration been given to enable kids that live in the Gunning area to attend college at Dickson / Gungahlin? I know it's quite a thing for some of the individuals where they have to go to, obviously, down to Balconnen and be sort of not necessarily ripped away, but taken away from their friendship circles, etc., and their support bases, and having to move right down into Balco to attend college. So the fact that you've opened up this into a joint sort of enrolment area, what consideration has been given to New South Wales students in that sort of Lake George area?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question to follow the previous one about college capacity. And look, we've taken a very deliberate decision with the New South Wales pathway policy to create an enrolment pathway for students from New South Wales to attend schools where we know we have plenty of available capacity for those students to be able to enrol, and where we can continue to guarantee enrolment for ACT-based residents at their local school. Schooling for New South Wales residents is primarily a matter for the New South Wales government, but ensuring we've got those pathways does mean we can offer those enrolments for people who, let's face it, don't live too far away from the ACT. But I think it's important that we maintain those policy controls to ensure that we can continue to guarantee capacity within the ACT for ACT students as well. So no changes are planned there in the short term. I think you're on mute, Peter.
I'm just saying I haven't seen any more questions in the chat window, or no more hands raised in the Zoom session. I can't, in the setup I've got dealing with right now, can't actually see what's going on Facebook. So if anyone is able to feed that through and copy and paste something into a chat, if there's a question pops up there, that'd be great. Otherwise, I might.
Facebook now.
Okay, thanks very much, Dave. Otherwise, I might thank Andrew and Vanessa for coming on tonight. That was a pretty comprehensive update, and the slides are certainly very helpful. The only comment I'd like to throw in is that is there some way of providing better transparency into some of these forward planning models and intentions? It is a big deal making a move to a new part of any community, including Canberra, and understanding what's going to happen over the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years is pretty important for any family moving in, and having some clarity around how the educational infrastructure, as well as the community infrastructure we love to see, we'd certainly be interested in a further update on how you're making space for community use in the schools. I know you touched on it briefly, but a further update on that would be good. But engage early and give us a better view. That would be great. That would be appreciated. Okay, yes. So just a comment coming in through from Facebook around observations that it's all happening worryingly late. The Gungahlin residents are seasoned to infrastructure upgrades arriving worryingly late, usually in the form of duplication of roads. But there is a sort of groundswell of concern around getting the infrastructure right for schools. So the more visibility I think we have and clarity to the modelling that you're trying to wrestle with to turn into infrastructure investments, I think would be really positive. Yep. All right. On that note, I might thank Andrew again and Vanessa again for their time, and also for Joe Mulligan, who took the initiative to make this happen, and disappointed, of course, that Minister Berry couldn't be here, but we'll hopefully catch her in a future time. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much for having us.
Cheers.
Thanks, Ben.
All right, so lots of focus there on the Throsby School, and we'll a bit more focus on Throsby when we asked the team from Capital Football and David Jeffrey from Sports and Rec ACT to talk about the home of football. David, I see you all online. Do you wish to take the con?
Yeah, certainly. Thanks, Peter. Thank you for having me, and pleased to be here to provide an update regarding the Throsby Home of Football. I'll shortly share my screen and then sort of talk through some of the key components. Just as further background, I understand that there is likely to be some representatives from Capital Football and Gungahlin United Football Club potentially registered for the event tonight as well.
All coming together there, David?
Yeah, 1 second.
Standing by.
Yeah. Is that showing up now?
No. Don't forget to click the share button after you select the screen you want to share.
Yeah.
Nothing coming through yet? No one else getting anything?
There we go. Hopefully that works.
Hey, there we go.
That's got it.
There we go. Thank you. All right. So in terms of some additional background, you will be probably well aware that the provision of a district sporting facility formed part of the East Gungahlin structure plan, also detailed in the Throsby concept plan. So that formed part of the early planning construct in terms of the future for this facility. We've been working closely with Capital Football for a number of years in terms of their aspiration to develop a community and a high performance facility that meets the needs of the football community, whilst also importantly providing a facility to support the wider community, i.e. in terms of access to sports ground facilities for local residents and alike. As part of the concentration of making the Throsby site a home of football, we worked with the broader sports sector in respect to mapping a bit of a regional strategy in terms of whether other sporting codes would be positioned moving forward. So football obviously primarily based at Throsby, but obviously the football would still access a range of other sports grounds within Gungahlin, but moving forward in terms of the Taylor District playing fields, that's nominated to focus on rugby union, rugby league, cricket, and longer term with the Throsby development part of the Gungahlin United Football Club content would shift to Throsby and therefore allowing use of Harrison, where they've got a significant base, to be utilised as for AFL fields in the longer term. In terms of what we've been doing recently, we've been working with our consultant team to develop a master plan for the site, and that's involved key input from Capital Football in respect of the key technical design requirements to meet their needs. And so that work has been ongoing, and then we've also been responding in consideration of some of the other site constraints that I'll talk to in a couple of slides moving forward. This step tonight sort of forms the starting point in terms of our community engagement with the community about the project. We're now sort of at a point where some of the early design documentation is ready to be obviously shared, and that also feeds into our planning pathway. So part of this development is the steps moving forward is to community engagement that will then lead to looking at a technical amendment for the site through EPSDD to uplift the future urban area overlay, and that then provides capacity to look at the zoning requirements for the site. Following the tech amendment process, building into then the submission of a state development plan, DA, for the site, which is a requirement again. So that's our sort of planning pathway for the project moving forward. As I said, next community engagement steps involves obviously discussion here tonight, then also looking to engage with the residents more broadly in Throsby and the surrounding area. We've had some early discussions with the SLA in respect to Throsby and potential linkages through their mingle program where possible. We're just working through some of the detail in respect to COVID restrictions and the like. So what forms and means that is done by in terms of email, letterbox drop, etc. We're still working through. And then, as I said, that will then move towards us obviously working with EPSDD in terms of a technical amendment to obviously go on public circulation and then the EDP DA. I'll talk to some of the EDP requirements a little bit as we go through. So obviously the front picture there is just a bit of an oversight of some of the key elements of the facility. Obviously I'll go in a bit more detail, but obviously football fields and the like with a centred indoor futsal facility and associated infrastructure to be housed within that. And that includes a Capital Football office for this to be their primary hub moving forward. So importantly, in terms of the project more broadly, in working with Capital Football on this project, they're a key stakeholder and partner and are contributing to the delivery of the project themselves financially. So some of the more recent sport and recreation infrastructure projects of the larger scale working with peak bodies involves co-contribution. So Capital Football is actually contributing financially towards this project, and then will following the delivery of the project will actually be on site and actually take carriage of the ongoing maintenance and planning and use of the facility moving forward through a sublease licensing arrangement. But the asset itself is retained as an ACT government asset. So stepping through the slides, this is a little bit small, but just in terms of the site plan, we'll provide a little bit more detail in the subsequent drawings. We broadly, in terms of had some site constraints that in trying to get this layout to work that we needed to consider. There's a major gas pipeline that is along Horse Park Drive, and that limited in terms of where we could locate the future buildings for the futsal centre. So with some of those setbacks, it basically meant that the buildings needed to be towards closer to the Mulligan's Flat perimeter fence. This is obviously Mulligan's Flat up through there. Throsby's obviously back down towards that way. So that was one constraint in terms of where buildings were located. In the development, there obviously some significant trees that were identified that we wish to retain. There's one here, and there's some others down here. So trying to obviously then looking at the logical layout, sports grounds are big open flat spaces with requirements around that. So we had to try and carefully fit those in, but yeah, obviously some trees will need to be taken out as part of the development, but the focus on keeping the high quality trees. In respect of stormwater management is a significant element that we need to consider in the design, with obviously a significant pond up within Mulligan's Flat that we need to obviously control that water. During some of the recent rainfall, the site more broadly has gone underwater. So we obviously need to control that, and obviously this system is looking to channel the water around the site, and we also have some use of bunds to essentially make sure that the site will operate and the water will be able to transverse around the site and not impact the ongoing operation of the facility. So those were some of the key constraints. We've obviously been liaising with the Mulligan's Flat Woodland Sanctuary as a key neighbour, just to appreciate some of their requirements, particularly obviously because there's the predator fence that needs consideration, but also obviously with the connection. So we've sort of had some ongoing dialogue through EPSDD around all of those requirements. So broadly, the site, as indicated, futsal, associated change rooms and facilities here, option for some growth if an additional. So currently we've got 2 full-size futsal facilities which can accommodate smaller futsal facilities. A main competition pitch, natural grass. Over here is a complementary to the main competition, synthetic training pitch. And then we have some further community fields down here. One of these is envisaged to be synthetic, this field is envisaged to be synthetic, and then these 3 fields are envisaged to be natural grass. So provides a complementary use and opportunities for football, also gives diversity in terms of dealing with wet weather events and the like. As you would appreciate, we've obviously had a very wet winter this year that has made it difficult for some of the sports grounds. So having a mixture of synthetic and natural grass is an ideal solution to allow Capital Football to pivot and adapt their training and competition regimes to suit. In terms of more broadly, the site then has entryway and a range of parking, including overflow parking opportunities within the site. I'll just move through a couple of the slides here. Obviously, part of the main building includes, for the main competition, a grandstand. So this obviously is envisaged to be around 800 seats and will provide some game day opportunity for a range of different Capital Football fixtures, including potentially Canberra United fixtures, which is one of their important programs. And then obviously the back there is where the futsal facilities will be. And then, as I said, there will be a mix of change rooms, facilities, Capital Football office, meeting rooms, etc., to accommodate their needs. This just gives a bit of a sense of the landscape plan and some of the requirements about, yes, there will be some trees that need to be removed. Part of obviously the landscape plan is to provide replacement trees within the site. so that will form part of the project. In terms of this is essentially to be a natural grass watercourse that would obviously, when significant rainfalls, allow the water to go through. So that is part of our stormwater response. And then this area here is also identified as a potential future growth opportunity, and the size of that lends itself to potentially fitting an additional number of football fields in there as a potential later stage in the future. This again just details some of the community infrastructure, but in respect to the proposed zoning for the site as part of the technical amendment, the site, the broader site, which is around 28 hectares, the majority of the land will be urban open space, but the area to support the enclosed oval component, the futsal and office areas, and this adjacent area are envisaged to be restricted access recreation. So that gives flexibility in terms of their uses moving forward, and then also allows the facility to obviously play an important role for some of the proposed indoor facility uses, but importantly, the majority of the land will continue to be urban open space. This is projected staging for the project. So as I said, this is a master plan for the site. In the first parcel or stage one of delivery works, whilst we will be looking at broader engineering across the site, the proposed delivery of community infrastructure is the areas highlighted in blue, which obviously connects to the stormwater requirements, the main competition field, the futsal facilities, indoor facilities and alike, car parking facilities, synthetic field and one of the community fields, the synthetic training field, one of the further community turf fields, and some of the overflow car parking are envisaged as to expand as the facility grows in the future. And this area, as indicated earlier, is I guess a potential future sporting facility expansion opportunity. One of the key things that always comes up with sports ground projects is lighting and light spill. This provides a bit of an indication in terms of the impacts around how the relevant Australian standards for sports ground requirements is ongoing and developing, and we're now in a position where sports ground lighting design is further enhanced with shrouds, etc., that allows that the light spill is very much eliminated through the design process at the boundary of the particular site. So each of these fields will have sports ground lighting. What we do as part of the design and delivery process is we work with the EPA and do testing in the delivery of the facilities and the commissioning and the testing of the lights as they go in to ensure that at the boundaries in terms of obtrusive light spill is within the required Australian standards. So that's something that we're very conscious of and work very closely in the design and implementation phase to ensure that is done correctly. There, in terms of some of and as I said, Peter, happy to share this post meeting. The central car park has a significant number of car parking facilities. So that one is in the order of a couple of hundred. As the facility grows, we have additional car parking opportunities here, and here, overflow parking of an additional 200 to 300, and some of these areas, even in a early stage one, would likely be level across the site, but also then drying, grassing and like so for certain events provide temporary parking or overflow parking opportunities for the site moving forward. In terms of the proposed schedule, where we're at the moment is planning approvals is what we're working on now, linked to our community engagement. So planning approvals late 21, early 22, some further design development in early 22, and then commence construction mid next year with construction envisaged for 22-23. So that's the main components. I'm happy to open it up if there's some any questions.
That's terrific. Thanks, David. Yeah, well, certainly, if you're looking for planning approvals in late 2021, it seems to me the community engagement, stakeholder engagement piece is going to be pretty intense and commencing really bloody soon. So, first question was from Amy Cable. Amy? Amy?
Oh, sorry, can you hear me?
I can now.
Sorry. I was just wondering in terms of the traffic on Gecko Way for anyone accessing the site or for residents, has there been consideration for another access point to the site from Horse Park Drive?
At this point, what as part of working with the consultants is that and part of our master planning and EDP will include traffic modelling and traffic plans. So in terms of access off the main road, that is not something we've envisaged at this point. And again, part of that was looking at there's some threshold requirements in terms of trying to meet Capital Football's aspirations in terms of the yield and the number of sporting facilities we're trying to achieve to give this critical mass. So as a result of that, we're looking to utilise the existing road connection off Gecko Way to provide that access point into the facility.
Okay, thank you. And just another question, sorry. Will all the fields be fenced off or will they be available for just general use for the public?
Yeah, good question. So essentially, as is the case with other enclosed ovals, the main competition field will have a security fence, not dissimilar to what you see at Gungahlin Closed or some of the schools. So that will be a sort of a 1.8 fence around the perimeter that acts for security, and also then for ticket events provides obviously opportunities through there. So that one will link to obviously the zoning restricted access recreation fits within that area. In respect of the synthetic fields that are within the urban open space area, so there's one here and one there. Typically, we provide a 900 millimetre fence with gates around it, and that's more just from the requirements in terms of either vehicle control and things like that, try to limit dogs and the like onto those areas, but the community absolutely will have access to those fields, and all of the remaining community fields will, like all other district sports grounds or ACT government sports grounds, will be there for the community to utilise outside of when there's obviously formal activities and the like being conducted by Capital Football, and that will be very much encouraged.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Terence.
Thanks very much, Peter. Hi, David. I suppose the good news so far is that it looks like a majority of the Throsby residents are looking forward to having the fields, which is good. I've certainly got a number of questions, and I have shared those with you already. But the one is mainly around the original environmental impact assessment was done a number of years ago, which didn't really take into account this use case. So the first question is, one is what has been done about, and my understanding from feedback is that's now expired. So is there another one? Will there be another one completed? And secondly, I'm very surprised about the turnaround times in terms of your consultation. I mean, we're already at the end of the year almost, and to say that that's going to be completed in such a short space of time, it just seems impractical, or that it's again fait accompli and everything is going to happen because it's just going to get rushed through. So there's most probably a sense of apprehension that the community engagement, just like other engagement in the Throsby area, is a light touch just to say that we did consultation and nothing serious comes from it. So I suppose looking for a commitment that there will be some serious consultation and that your department will seriously consider the objections, the points that are raised in that consultation. And so that's the first one. The first one is about the environmental impact assessment. Will that happen again? What happens with it? And secondly, around consultation. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your questions, Terence. In respect of I think you're referring to there was a Throsby EIS done quite a number of years ago. It was essentially predated, and essentially the environmental components of this project then got wrapped into the broader Gungahlin strategic assessment. So that's where the environmental considerations, etc., have been wrapped into the project. So yeah, the Gungahlin strategic assessment provides the pathway for the development of the site as a district sporting facility as originally envisaged. In relation to your question around community engagement, yeah, I'll absolutely take that on board. As I sort of indicated at the start, this was a starting process of community engagement around the project. We're just working through some of the implications around what we can do in that space relative to COVID, but definitely identify engagement through with the residents as a key next step, and that's a requirement before we can actually consider going down the path of doing the technical amendment process.
So you made a statement. If the strategic assessment takes into account the original use case, this is a different use case. This is not the same. So surely it needs to be reassessed.
From my understanding, the Gungahlin strategic, essentially the previous EIS essentially was considered, then stopped, and then ultimately a broader Gungahlin approach to some of those elements was considered, and then that, as I said, the site became part of the Gungahlin strategic assessment. So I think from memory, the Gungahlin strategic assessment in terms of expiry, etc., I think from my previous advice from EPSDD doesn't expire until early 2040s, etc. So that provides the pathway for this proposal to go forward on that basis.
Thanks very much, David.
Thank you.
I just have one question, David. I mean, how much thought's been put into accessibility to the site for things other than cars? I'm thinking particularly public transport, obviously serving the whole of Canberra from not quite the most northerly fringe of the entire city is a bit of a challenge, but certainly making it better, more accessible to light rail and the rest of the public transport network, and active travel connections would be good. I mean, what there's been a lot of focus on the site itself here, but what thoughts been put into that and what actions might follow?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Yeah, definitely in terms of our broader EDP, we'll need to pick up and respond. So that's that has been considered as part of our EDP documentation that we're still working through and getting closer to having some completed documentation. Obviously, bike racks, access to the site, whether that be foot traffic, bikes, etc., is part of that consideration. Also, obviously, that considers potential options to work with Transport Canberra in respect of the bus networks and the like. So that will definitely form part of our EDP and the associated studies that form part of our EDP package.
Okay, well, I don't see any further commentary and no further hands raised, assuming Terence has got his hand up from previously. On that basis, thank you, David, for that. I certainly will come chasing you either with Terence or without Terence to get some clarity on what your intention is with the engagement and what processes you're looking for. Because like you say, if you're like Terence was saying, if we want to try and get this done on the timelines you've highlighted, then that needs to start like really soon. And and be substantive if we're serious about getting some feedback on that.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. And that's what we're projecting to do and part of our program moving forward.
Okay, well, David, thank you. It's good to see the project's alive and progressing, and we look forward to working with the Throsby community to make it land.
Excellent. Thanks,
Cheers.
Peter,
Thanks very
for
much.
the opportunity. Thank you. Bye.
All right, grinding on through our agenda, we've got 2 items left, and then so I will try and crack the whip just to bundle these through before 8:30. But our next speaker is Isabel Thompson from Icon Water. Isabel, I can see you, which you're one of the few people with the camera on. Thank you. Much appreciated. I assume you have slides that you can share yourself?
I do.
Or you do. Great. All right. Well, over to you.
Thank you so much, Peter. And I'll just point out, and I should have mentioned this to you before as well, that I'm here with Lisa Quinn from Icon Water, who also has her camera on. So we might both just wave so you can see us in case so you can pop up on your screen. And so both Lisa and I will jump off each other today. So I'm just going to quickly get up our slides for you. Okay, so hopefully that's sharing okay. Please shout out if it's not. So I'll start, but we'll quickly pass to Lisa to do a sort of a more formal and probably much more articulate introduction to our program than myself. But of course, we're here with Icon Water. I work for a company called Newgate Communications that's working with Icon Water for their Let's Talk Water and Wastewater program, which you can see up on the screen here. And this program has been recently launched as sort of Icon Water's new sort of ongoing and permanent community engagement program. And they have done community engagement on a very regular basis with all of their projects, but this is sort of a new sort of permanent program and platform where all of their projects will sort of now sit underneath as sort of an ongoing community engagement initiative. But the first project that we're looking to speak to the community about in this sort of first part of it is the upcoming price review and price proposal that Icon Water is preparing. So a big part of that is us going out to the community and asking, I guess, posing questions to them in various different spaces that Icon Water is involved in and trying to get a sense of what they need and value and expect from Icon Water's water and wastewater services. But we'll get into those areas in a lot more detail. So what we'd like to do today is to provide a brief overview of the program in general and what we have done so far this year and what we're still planning to do this year, and to ask for your feedback, not only on the sort of the questions in our activities, but on the process itself as well, and how we can better keep you, sort of the community council informed, but of course how we can perhaps better engage in the Gungahlin area as well, because of course you're the experts, and we'd love to hear any insights you have of how we can sort of better our program. So I'll pass to Lisa Quinn to give a little bit more of an introduction to the program, but more so of the price proposal as well, and some of our requirements under that. Lisa, take it away.
Thanks, Isabel. So I manage the customer advocacy and experience branch for Icon Water. So a lot of the remit of our branch is all around customer service, understanding insights, engaging with the community. And as Isabel said, we've designed a new program that we've branded Let's Talk Water and Wastewater. Now, the first engagement we're doing under this brand is for our price review. So I'm not sure if you are aware of how it works. So if you just indulge me for a moment, I'll just take a moment to explain. So because we are a natural monopoly, we're not in a competitive commercial space. So there is an independent competition and regulatory commission in the ACT that regulates the prices for water. So every 5 years, we put together a proposal to the regulator, explaining to them in quite detail how much it's going to cost us to provide water and wastewater services to Canberra over the next 5 years. So that's a combination of two things. So it's the base price for how much it costs to manage the catchments, treat the water, run it through the system so that when you turn your tap on, you have fresh water. And then the other end of the scale is when you flush your toilet, that the sewerage is taken away and treated and then returns back into the environment. The other component of our price review is our capital program, and also a small percentage of sort of discretionary spend on things where the community can have a say. So really the program that we're looking at the moment is looking at those things where there are decisions to be made. There are options on the table. There are forks in the road where we could go a couple of different ways, but we'd really like some feedback from the community on which way we should go. So our price review is due to be submitted to the regulator in June. We've been engaging since around July, and we'd really like to talk to you tonight about the detail of what we're engaging on and the topics where you can have your say.
So I'll sort of over these next couple of slides are probably a little bit too much detail than what I'll go in tonight, but they're up on the screen for a quick read as well. But we thought we'd also just show you our objectives that we're sort of benchmarking ourselves against for this program. So this first slide are specifically our engagement objectives. And I won't go into too much detail on these, but it's essentially us outlining all the different objectives, whether it's engagement, the regulator as well, international sort of engagement principles, which is number 3 here, consistency with IAP2 principles, making sure that our objectives all together make us accountable, but also will result in a really comprehensive program that's facilitated really meaningful engagement. And I think actually this next slide speaks to that a little bit better. So we've sort of outlined those different pillars, I guess, that will all work together. So Icon Water's objectives, so as a business, Icon Water, of course, has their sort of core business principles that we'll work to adhere to. The ICRC objectives, so the independent regulator, of course, with the price review process, you know, they absolutely have to be adhered to. IAP2 objectives and core values. So this is again around that every activity that we do has to sort of be stemmed in with the mind to create meaningful engagement and conversation, to proactively seek stakeholders that we know we need to engage in. Just those sort of what is often assumed, but it's really important for us to actually pull out and write down. And then lastly, we have our customer advocacy forum objectives. So that's one of our activities that we'll also mention again a bit later on. We've sort of brought together some key industry representatives and key bodies in an advocacy forum group that meets quite regularly, and they're sort of our temperature check group to make sure we're keeping to these objectives, and they're providing regular feedback on our activities and process. And we'll also ask you as well in the sort of Q&A at the end if there's anything sort of missing from these as well, if you think we need to be working towards another objective that you may not have seen up on the screen or heard. So to give you a bit of a snapshot into what we're doing and what we've done, this is a journey map essentially of the whole program. So from its sort of inception phase right up until the end of the year, early next year, when it's all getting wrapped up in a report for Icon Water to consider. So at the moment, we're probably right in the middle and heading in towards that second half. So what's called gathering insights phase in that blue line in the middle. And it's essentially when we've been doing the bulk of our activities and the bulk of our meeting with people. So as you can see on the screen, it's involved our customer advocacy forum, as mentioned. It's involved focus groups. Our survey, community survey, was launched during this time and has been completed. It's also involved interviews with some of Icon Water's key account stakeholders. So basically trying to hit as many different facets of the ACT community as we can, and speaking with as many people as we can, to then move into what we've called confirming insights, which is when our research team will complete their sort of secondary data collecting activities. So it's a way to be able to compare and contrast the conversations we've had in this gathering insights phase. So we'll do a sort of quantitative survey, deliberative forums, and it'll just really add to Icon Water's understanding of what the community feels and wants and values. And I won't stay on this one too long, but this is just a more detailed look at each of those tools. So the blue slides, the blue tiles are the more sort of community facing and sort of the average ACT residential kind of activities. So things like our website, social media, our community survey, and the pink tiles are our research activities that I mentioned before as well. So I think what I'll sort of stop on for a bit longer is this slide here, which is, again, it's a snapshot, but I guess it's a snapshot in numbers of what we've completed so far and what's underway. So our survey, I'll just point out in particular, is sort of one of our really key and really important data capturing tools. It's what we've tried to push through our social media. We sort of raise and share it with each sort of meeting that we have, including this one. So if there's any interest in completing this survey, we'd really love for you to do that, as seeing as it's just so important. Will feed into some really wonderful feedback and reporting. And it's meant to be sort of completed as an individual as well. So it's definitely that sort of individual residential feedback point. So we've had 253 responses so far, 8 social media posts. So we aim to do that weekly. And again, that's always pushing towards our survey. And then these are some of the other activities that I've mentioned before. So our focus groups, interviews, presentations with people who are interested in speaking with us, as we're doing tonight, and pop-ups. And we're very proud to say at this meeting that the one pop-up we managed to sneak in before COVID got the best of us was the Gungahlin Community Markets. And it was a really, really fun day. And I couldn't help but pop in this slide tonight of the markets, because we managed to sort of really bright and colourful stall. Lots of surveys were completed, and not without the help of our mascot, Blossom the dog, who does make a feature in this presentation at the bottom there. And just on this, the right-hand side, you can just see a bit of a snapshot of what that program branding is like and how we've sort of styled those social media posts, and hopefully that's getting a bit of traction, getting familiar. But again, we're always trying to keep that consistent, and the survey is our sort of, again, our main touch point. And our website, of course, is that sort of real central hub for the whole program. So I might pass back to Lisa, who will just delve into a little bit more of these key question areas that we've mentioned before. So each of the activities we've just run through aims to sort of touch on one or multiple of these areas and sort of posing these different ideas to the community. Lisa.
Thank you. So of the areas that the community has an opportunity to have a say, there are 7. So the first grouping around customer community values and understanding. So what we're looking at there is trying to understand the level of water and wastewater literacy in Canberra, what you value about our water and wastewater services, and we're trying to understand our ongoing education and where we should be putting our resources in that space. Under the second category, we're talking about customer service channels and website. So Icon Water is quite a traditional business, and we're not very advanced when it comes to our IT systems. We're starting to get there, but we have a lot of end-of-life systems that are ready for upgrade. So this has to be done regardless as part of good business, but there is opportunity for Canberrans to have their say on whether or not there is some functionality that you would really like us to consider for when you're doing business with us. So given that the world's moving into a fast-paced social media environment, currently we really only offer, you can call us on the phone, you can send us an email, or you can go onto our website and fill out a form. We're just wanting to seek some feedback on, should we be modernising these things? Should we be putting some money into this because you'd like to be able to do business with us in different ways? With regard to levels of service, this one is a really interesting one that I think a lot of people would like to probably have their say on. So this is focusing on water interruptions, wastewater issues, overflows, blockages, that type of thing. So as I mentioned before, we're a regulated business and we have service levels that we must adhere to. We're currently performing over and above those, but we just want to make sure, we just want to test that is actually working for the community. Are you happy with the current levels of service? Are you happy with the amount of water main breaks you have? Are you happy with the number of sewer blockages that you may have? We will be going into willingness to pay type studies in the quantitative phases towards the end of this financial year, where we will be posing some scenarios where we can pull some levers, and we could either reduce the level of service, therefore reduce cost on the bill, or if you like the level of service that it currently is, then we can plan our programs and cleaning schedules, etc., to stay the same. Or if you're willing to pay a little bit more because you're not happy with that service, then we absolutely can pull some levers and change the way that we operate and maintain the system. With regard to water security, this again is going to be a really interesting topic. So where water security is really top of mind, and it's really the core function of what we're doing. We're always looking to the future. We're always planning 50 to 70 years ahead, making sure that we have enough water supply for the Canberra region. What we'd like to start doing is really think about, should we be thinking about the water cycle differently, more locally? We absolutely could build another dam, but should we? We're really looking to have an all options on the table discussion. There's a lot of different water sources that we could absolutely consider. We could use stormwater harvesting for drinking water. We could use purified recycled water for drinking. We could have recycled water for irrigation. We could use more groundwater sources, aquifers. there's a number of different things that we can do, and we'd like to start opening this conversation, because if Canberrans are open to different sources of water for long-term sustainability and water security, then we need to start planning right now, and we'd really like to start having this conversation. In the innovation space, there's two streams that we're really interested in feedback on. One is the space around, we do a lot of research and development. We work with a lot of other utilities across Australia and the world. There are a lot of different emerging technologies in the water and sewerage space, but again, that all costs money. So we currently have an R&D program, but what we're trying to test is, would you like us to be more leaders in this space and actually be starting to put some research and development into areas of newer technologies that are coming through, or are you happy with the level of research and where we are as far as our water and wastewater processes? The other arm of the innovation discussion is around digital meters. So currently, as you know, we have mechanical meters that are in our system, but technology is moving very fast, innovation's moving very fast. The fact is, though, that as a business, we cannot make our business case stack up currently to just automatically roll out digital meters. One of those issues is the price point. It costs us about $40 per mechanical meter. If we were to purchase digital meters, they're about $240 per unit currently. They are coming down in price, and we can absolutely be looking at how to implement those. But there's a real opportunity here for the ACT community to have their say on how quickly we transition to digital meters, and how much do you value the benefit that there is from having digital meters, both from a personal perspective and also from a business perspective. There are a lot of advantages, but it's just a matter of how quickly do you want us to transition to that. And if you see real benefit and you'd like us to do it quicker, there's opportunity to do that, but it will cost a little bit more on your bill, or we can just roll it out as we were planning to once mechanical meters start to get to end of life. But that might take about 20 years to get to that point. So we'd really like to have a deep discussion around that. In the sustainability space, as you know, the ACT government has a commitment to net zero by 2045. Icon Water is absolutely committed to that, and we've already started our program of transitioning there. But this is one of those discretionary discussions that we want to understand whether or not there is appetite in the Canberra community for us to move that forward. Should we be actually bringing our program forward and hitting our net zero target by, say, 2030 or 2035? So we actually have some options that we can talk to the community about and work our program around that. Not everything is going to have an impact to the bill. Some of it is about reprioritising our program of work and doing some of these sustainable projects first, but we really need to understand the appetite in the community. Also in that space, we could potentially expand our waste management and resource recovery program. Currently, about 80% of the waste that is produced through Icon Water tasks and activities does not go to landfill. We're actually able to use that resource and recycle it into our processes. There's some room to move, and there are, again, some emerging technologies in that space, but it would mean that Icon Water would potentially be going into different lines of business outside BAU. But if the Canberra community was really open to that and really wanted to be progressive in that space, then we're open to having a discussion about whether or not that's important to you. And again, it would help us reprioritise our projects and think about the infrastructure we put in the long term in a different way. The final topic that we want to have discussion on is around tariffs. So the two areas that the community can have their say. One is about balancing the tariff. So I need to be very, very clear that this is not about changing the tariff structure for the next 5 years worth of pricing. There will be a fixed component and a consumption variable component, and it will still be the two-tiered consumption tariffs. What we are asking, however, is, because there is room to rebalance those two streams within the current tariff structure. So if you want more certainty around what your bills will be every quarter, then we could potentially put the fixed component up and reduce the amount of consumption. Or if you want control over your bill and be able to control that by how much water you use, then we should keep our fixed charge component low like it is now and have a higher proportion of consumption, because that means that you have control over how much you use. So we really need to pick that apart a little bit to make sure that we're keeping bills affordable. The other stream in the tariff discussion is around should we have a non-residential tariff? So this has been discussed in the non-residential sector for a while, and when I say a while, probably over the last 6 years or so, which we absolutely had a red hot go before last regulatory submission to see whether or not having another tariff layer for non-residential customers would work. What the dilemma is that by virtue of their businesses, non-residential customers will always be in the highest tier consumption tariff because they just use that much water to do their business or to make their product. So there's nothing they can do to reduce their water usage like a residential customer can. So, but the dilemma that we faced last time when we were trying to work that through, in talking to the different agencies like ACTCOS, Council of the Aging, some of the other advocacy bodies, the affordability question was a real one. And when we actually overlaid that across trying to reduce the bills of our higher end of town and our non-residential customers, we just could not get that balance right between keeping bills affordable for the rest of the community if we reduced cost for the non-residential bills. So we still need to have that discussion because I don't think we've cracked it yet. But what we'd like to be able to do is get a feel for whether or not the community really, really wants us to unpack this, whether they think there's something there. Because what we will do is in our regulatory submission, we will make sure that we have a project to work with the ICRC to actually unpack the whole tariff structure. Because we won't be able to just stick a non-residential tariff in there and keep the current tariff structure how it is. We need to unpack the whole thing, which will take a long time. When I say a long time, it's probably a couple of years worth of work to unpack the whole thing and then reform a tariff structure. So if the community really wants us to have a look at that, we're absolutely open to it. And if our feedback is overwhelming, then we will be submitting that to the regulator for them to start really having a look at that during the next regulatory period. So they're all the different topics that you can have a say in, and we're really excited to hear from our community about those things.
Right, so that takes us to the end of what we would like to present to you all tonight on. So we've just popped this up as a sort of wrap-up slide of to sort of start the Q&A with you of mainly sort of how you would like to be kept informed of our progress and how you would possibly like to provide feedback. We've mentioned our survey as well, which I will pop on the screen here. So if you're really eager, you can scan the QR code, or we might be able to share it with you all via Peter, because it's a really great way to provide feedback, it's particularly if you may not have time to give it to us tonight, or feel you have much more to say than what can be said in the chat. There's lots of free flowing boxes, and I'm sure many of you would have wonderful ideas. So we really would encourage you to complete this survey, but we're absolutely open to other ways you think you'd be able, you and the Gungahlin community could provide feedback to us. But I'll stop sharing now as well, just so we can have a bit of a chat if anybody has questions.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Isabel. Look, we are a little tight for time. So there was one quick question around how do we ensure the ICRC actually is independent? If you can answer that inside a minute or so, that'd be great.
That would be a question for the ACT government.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, which part of the ACT government looks after them? Which directorate?
So it is. I think it is Chief Minister.
Okay. Yeah, Chief Minister's Department.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
CMD. Right, we can do that. All right. I don't see any other questions up. So I will thank you, Lisa and Isabel, for your details, and we'll certainly share your survey through our Facebook and email channels, and hopefully get a few people involved in that huge agenda that you're prosecuting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yes, the question I had from Terence is, can we please share the slides, which is okay. We'll put them on our website and make them available. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, if you could, someone could, you, Isabel, could email them to me, that'd be great. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for having us.
Okay, I'm conscious that we've been hard at it for a good hour and a half or more tonight, but we did try and squeeze in another item. The Gold Creek Homestead site has been very near and dear to the Community Council and the communities of Gungahlin for some years, and recently has now been taken up by Lendlease, who do own the site adjacent to it, which the retirement village known as the Grove. And Lorelei Baum has kindly joined us this evening to talk to us about the Gold Creek Homestead Precinct. Hello, Lorelei. Are you there, Lorelei? You look to have frozen at the magic instant. Video has stopped. Timing is everything. Hello, Lorelei. Oh, I can hear you. Lorelei, are you there? Okay, if your audio may not be getting through, if you know how to stop your video, try doing that and talking up. Don't hear you.
Oh dear. I'm sorry about that. I've got my mute off.
Okay, well, we can definitely hear you clearly now. Your video is not working well, but that doesn't really matter because I think the key was to show the slides. I was hoping to make sure that you could pop up and see. Look, it all seems to be working now. So, Lorelei, over to you. Sorry.
Thank you, Peter. And it has been, like, my connection's been fantastic right until that minute. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be okay. I also have my colleague and Senior Development Manager from Lendlease, Sarah Forbes, as well. So when we ran our first webinar last week, we had a moment where we froze and I had to go on a different computer. This time, if that happens, I'll hand across to Sarah at that time. But hopefully we'll be fine. And there are a couple of slides that Sarah would like to talk to as well. Just given our constraints at Lendlease, we have to piggyback off you for Zoom. So if you are okay to run my slides, that will be fabulous. Great. Thank you so much.
Okay, good. Okay, so give me a ping or something to move them on.
I'll do a bing. No, I'll just go to the next slide. Peter, how long have I got? Is it 10 minutes?
We normally try to finish by by 8:20. So,
Okay.
you know, if you run a little bit
We can
further,
come back, you
we'll
know.
drop off, and look, we'll have a chance to come back. So I think the key, hit some
Absolutely.
highlights. I think those people
Sure.
who are interested will stay on, but if nothing else, we'll capture it on video for those who might be interested.
Yeah, and if you're doing a follow-up, we can certainly, you know, there's a lot of information on the website now, and very keen to talk to people, and we're at the start of the engagement process. So I'm sure if you'll have us, we'd love to come back. But let's just pull this together a little bit more quickly than we had planned. We're here tonight to talk about the Gold Creek Homestead Precinct. It's very important for us to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the lands on which we're all dialing in from today. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which the Gold Creek Homestead Precinct is situated. We pay our respects to Aboriginal elders past and present, who are the knowledge holders and teachers. With that said, we're here to talk about the future for Gold Creek Homestead Precinct now that Lendlease has come on board to take forward our planning. Just a little bit of information, next slide, thank you, about the project and the precinct, moving it on. Where we are is just north of Canberra, close to your homes. It's a 4.8 hectare site, and most importantly, it's got a terrific story to it around the homestead precinct and the native, the Aboriginal and Indigenous heritage. We're very, very keen to carry that forward in the project that gets delivered. I'd like to hand over to Sarah to actually talk a little bit about the project itself, and then I'll come back in to talk about engagement. So Sarah, if you can just take a few minutes on this slide here.
Sure, and thanks Lorelei and everyone for joining us tonight. I'm Sarah Forbes, the Senior Development Manager who will be looking after the delivery of the precinct. And just a really quick background as to the site. The Gold Creek Homestead Precinct was released to the market for sale through a request for tender in June 2020 by the Suburban Land Agency, and Lendlease was selected as the preferred tender, and we've now exchanged contracts for the site with the SLA, which occurred in August this year. And there is now a process of project development and engagement prior to lodging a formal development application for the site, scheduled for early next year. And given the history and location of the precinct, there is a significant amount of community interest in what happens here, and we can confirm that Lendlease is currently running an engagement with the community, whilst also liaising with the Suburban Land Agency. We're very keen to build on the SLA and the work they've done with the community, and in particular, how a panel, community stakeholder and community panel was formed, which included, the outcome of that was a project development brief, which provided a really clear guide on how we should tender for the site and provide a plan to best suit that briefing document. And we'll continue to revisit this document as the development progresses. Just the next slide for me, Peter. So this panel consists of approximately 20 community representatives, including Peter. And so there's quite a lot of information about their work and what they did in trying to form that brief, which can be found on their website if you're looking to find a bit more information about that. But the main outcome that shaped our precinct planning was the 5 themes that were included in that brief, these being new place with a long past, a caring, inclusive and safe place, a rural oasis, sustainability and ongoing considerations. And our team has worked really hard to try and incorporate all of these themes, and also the SLA design requirements associated with the site to deliver an outcome that recognises both the history and inclusion on the site. Just your next slide there, Peter. As a vision for the site, we thought that we would try our very best to deliver and encapsulate the 5 themes, and we came up with a vision for the site that it was to create an intergenerational precinct that is sustainable, inclusive and builds on our existing connections with the Ngunnawal community. And so in doing that, our sort of preliminary plan, which is on the next slide, Peter, that's it, have guided this initial plan, which was put forward at the tender phase, and is something that will be further refined through community engagement and also through design development. And we'll just touch on the three sort of main areas within that preliminary plan. So I'll just quickly jump to the next slide there. Peter, thank you. So the first stage we'll talk about is the retirement living precinct stage, where we'll be providing 45 new independent living units as an extension to land leases adjoining the Grove Retirement Village, which is located at the north of the site, so sort of towards the top of the hill away from Gungahlin Drive. And a co-location of retirement living and aged care that we're able to provide on this site. We aim to improve the quality of lives for residents as they transition through various levels of care, which we have received a lot of sort of feedback today that that's something that the community was really seeking, as well as with the new retirement living villas. So I will just keep motoring along into the next area and the next slide, which shows the aged care home, which will be developed in conjunction with our partner Arcare. For those that don't know, Arcare are a highly respected aged care provider and will become the owner and operator of the facility once completed. You may also hear Knowles Group mentioned, which are the parent company of Arcare. The aged care facility or home will provide a full continuum of care, including skilled nursing, dementia care, respite care, allied health services, 24/7 care, and we'll also have a cafe, which I know a number of members of the community have asked if that's something that can be incorporated in the precinct, and which we will have one at this stage, and that will be included in the aged care facility, which will be available to the public to visit. We're currently looking at a scheme for 100 beds approximately, and hope we'll be finding a new opportunity that currently is in the market or in the local community today. Now, sorry for this speedy review, I'm just conscious of time. Lorelei will now take you through the central precinct.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. So with the central precinct, the reason I'm talking about that is we really are going to be looking for community feedback on how to bring this publicly accessible part of the project to life. It has the homestead buildings, which will be refurbished and repurposed, and the remnant gardens will be brought back to life as well, and the old tennis court there that you can see. So I'll just move to the next slide to talk through the buildings, and then the following, not moving there yet, Peter, but the gardens part of the precinct, because the buildings and the gardens will dictate a little bit of what we can do there, but the three parts of the existing building will be retained are the actual homestead,
I think we've lost your audio, Lorelei. Oop. Yeah, we've lost your audio. Are you able to mute your video and just press ahead with your audio? Or is that just me? Oh, you're back.
No, I'm having trouble too at this end, hearing her. Look, I'm happy to jump in if we need to.
You may, Sarah, I'm afraid. Don't know what gremlins have beset Lorelei at the crucial moment.
That's okay, and I apologize if I missed something that she was planning on saying, but I'll try and continue on. So as Lorelei mentioned, we've got the current homestead, which has a number of extensions, and as part of the brief, it was noted that it was really important that to maintain the 1860s form back to the original state, because
it was ideally that the homestead would be retained in some form, and we've taken on board that, and we'll be sort of restoring the original stone cottage, the kitchen sort of space, and the slab hut. There will also be new toilet facilities proposed to the central precinct area to assist with what may be provided within those spaces, such as if people would like to hire them out for a function, or arts and crafts, or other uses. Utilities will be there. Now, I believe Lorelei was going to, Lorelei, jump in if you're available or back on the line. The kitchen wing, just to give you a bit of background as to what was currently, what our thoughts are that could be used in these spaces. The kitchen space, we've currently, I might just jump back to the previous slide if it's not too much. If it's too hard, don't worry, I will work with what I've got, but it just sort of articulates where it's shown. We're proposing to have a community garden and sort of a little mini orchard sort of space in front of that old kitchen area, which could assist such as potting spaces and room for areas where people are able to use those facilities and have easy access to the gardens that help facilitate that space. As mentioned, you can sort of faintly see that number 4 in that large stone cottage will be more from a function perspective, where we see the community may be able to use and hire out. And the building to the sort of bottom of the page, that third one there, that's it, where as more of a storage maintenance place at the moment. But of course, that detail will be dependent on our community feedback and what people see as the best way to utilise these spaces. And the gardens, with the existing tennis court and some of the history of the site, you can probably, move forward a couple of slides now, Peter. Sorry, just to make your life hard. As Lorelei mentioned, the history of the site's very important to us. Some of the key features are the windmill and the stone seat that we're looking to can maintain on the site in some respect, to try and incorporate that in our future design. Sight lines have been incorporated in the current plan to try and, I know the views from Gungahlin Drive have been stated of their importance, so we've tried to incorporate that into this preliminary plan. So as mentioned, all our the central precinct is really the focus and will be available to the public, including new residents in the village, and this is a sort of key area we're really hoping to get feedback on. Next slide, I might jump to Peter if possible. So the site, travel into and around the precinct has a big impact on how the precinct will connect with community and how well it functions. As part of forming the preliminary plan, we've incorporated both the required SLA travel improvements and also travel links that aim to benefit those using the precinct. Some of you may be aware, if you live in the region or the area, but the Gungahlin Drive Monty Place intersection currently has some safety concerns that have been raised, and as part of the works, we'll be upgrading this intersection. This will all be undertaken and approved in consultation with Transport Canberra. The main access to the site will be from the roundabout of Monty Place, and sort of a new entry off that into the precinct will service the whole site. There will also be a travel link through the site available to the public, which will connect the rest of the public to the amenities within and adjacent to the site, which can be seen in blue on the plan that's currently shown. We also received a number of feedback about that residents really enjoy pedestrian connections through the village, and we've tried to incorporate as much as possible into this preliminary plan pedestrian access and walks that they can take around the site, and they're highlighted in pink on the current plan. Some may be interested in car parking. Just quickly, visitor parking for the retirement village will be located within village driveways. The driveways are a certain length that will accommodate an additional car. We do have some visitor parking predominantly for the community precinct, which will be within, it's a little bit tricky to see on this plan, but there is some just on that entry road following between the roundabout and the Heritage Homestead. There is some parking located either side of that road in road, and the parking for the aged care facility will be retained within their portion of the site. So just next slide, Peter, thank you. I'll just quickly go through some of the key programs that we're currently forecasting and targeting. So as part of developing this site, Lendlease is committed to ongoing community engagement and achieving endorsement of the design by the Suburban Land Agency prior to lodgement of the development application with the Planning Authority. So prior to lodgement, there's 3 key review points which the community will be consulted on for feedback and suggestions to help refine our design, and also to identify and promote an understanding of potential community partners to the central precinct. So we're currently in our first stage or phase, which is focused around broad feedback on the initial design and ideas surrounding the uses in the central precinct. And secondly is the concept design phase, which we are forecasting to occur in October this year, which will present a more refined design and incorporate feedback received where possible. And thirdly, there'll be a pre-development approval phase. This will be before the plans are lodged for approval with the Planning Authority, and the design will be largely developed and aim to incorporate community preferences. From an overall delivery perspective, we're forecasting to lodge the DA early in 2022, with construction to commence following approval later that year. And we're targeting delivery of the overall precinct in 2024. Lorelei, are you back on the line at all? Not quite yet. All right, no problems. I will see how I go. From a community engagement perspective, as we've previously mentioned, we are very aware that effective engagement is critical to achieving the Gold Creek precinct vision. And the aim is to restore the homestead and develop the site in a way that whenever we can meet community needs and preferences. That'll be done in a way that is self-sustaining and covers the cost running and maintaining these facilities within the central precinct. With the help of the community, we want to identify the right activities, facilities and organisations that we can work with to ensure the best outcome is achieved. As mentioned, these could include art classes, gardening, lecture series, and now we're at the start of the development and engagement process. Now's the perfect time to explore these ideas and partners and any concerns that have already been raised, and to identify new ones. We want to make sure that we direct our resources to get the best results for as many people as we can as possible. And at this early stage, there is a terrific opportunity to explore lots of different options. Next slide, thanks, Peter. And so to make this space work to its full potential, it'll be vital we involve many parts of our community. This slide shows a cross-section of who we are currently engaging with. Look, there are many sort of competing ideas and preferences, but I'm confident that we can work through and deliver an outcome that is appealing for everyone. This will take some work and time, but we are committed to finding this and try and streamline it in a logical way. In our next phase of engagement, we're hoping to work with stakeholders to narrow down these options and agree preferences within the community. At a later time, we'll also progress further initiatives for the site, including an interpretation plan in consultation with our community. which will showcase and ensure that the special history of the site and the local area is maintained in the future. Just on the next slide. Sorry, I'm conscious of the time, Peter. If you need me to wrap up quicker, let me know. In terms of First Nations people and the rural history of the site, we're seeking and engaging with First Nations leaders and people to find the best ways to showcase their story and involve them in the project. We are now making contact with each of the RAOs, and we hope the engagement process will continue to build on the understanding of the current cultural significance of the site. And in mentioning the Aboriginal cultural assessment, there has been one commissioned by the SLA and completed, which was included in the tender package of the site. And we understand there is more and further work to do to explore and ensure that cultural heritage is maintained. And overall, just an overarching statement, our goal is to include initiatives with First Nations people in planning, construction and operation at Gold Creek, with best practices in procurement and employment, culture and heritage interpretation. Thanks, Peter. Just on to the next slide. As everyone's aware, the arrival of Delta variant and COVID has meant that we've had to change to all virtual communication at present and engagement, and we've adapted our approach to do this to minimise any risk to the community. Hopefully we'll get out of lockdown soon, but in the event we don't, we'll be very cautious and try and ensure any risks are managed. Please, so understand it might not be as easy to communicate on an online basis. We'll try and work through that, and that sort of means we've really tried to provide a lot of information on our website, which I encourage everyone to go to. We can forward a link if people or the Gungahlin City Council doesn't have that currently. We'll make sure you've got access to that. The engagement session that we held last Thursday to the community has, I believe now has been uploaded on there, so please, if you didn't have time to see it, it'll give you a more detailed understanding of the current preliminary plan for the site. This part of our website includes an ideas wall, so please visit that, and any great ideas you may have or comments about the plan, feel free to put it up on the wall, and we will take that on board. And there's also a feedback form where people would like to complete a survey, and that'll go directly to Lorelei, our engagement team, and myself, and of course via email, phone. We're open, and please do send in your comments when you've had a chance to have a look through the detail. So next slide, Peter, thank you. Look, I might just leave this site. I think we probably touched on engagement and discussion. We're looking for what you think is great, what it works, what it doesn't, and we will definitely consider and take on board all feedback that is sent through. So I might try and wrap up there because I know we're running well over. So thank you very much for your time, Peter. I do appreciate it, and everyone for listening.
No worries. Thank you for that update. And like I say, and I was explaining to Lorelei, it's so far it's been a really well engaged project with the community, and we're certainly looking for the transition to Lend Lease to continue that. Look, just quickly on questions for those who are keen to ask them. I think we should be keen to answer them. Lynn, did you want to speak to what you've put in the chat window, or did you just want to respond to what's in the chat window?
Just respond to what's in the chat window. We're running out of time.
Yeah, no, sorry. So Lynn sent me a note and basically pointed out that 100 beds in the residential aged care facility is really inadequate for a population the size of Gungahlin. And one of the reasons this is an exciting development is we are terribly underserved for aged care facilities at Gungahlin. I guess the question is, why is there not more residential aged care beds versus villas? And what other opportunities for further residential aged care facilities are Lend-Lease or Arc Care looking at in Gungahlin? And then there were a couple of other questions that Sarah might be better placed to address. So I don't know if you, Sarah, or Lorelei are able to talk to that, assuming Lorelei's audio is going to cooperate, but it seems like it's not.
I'm happy to, where I can, provide commentary on that. Look, I do understand that it's quite, aged care is very in demand for the site, for the suburb and the community of Gungahlin. And where possible, we will try and, if we can increase on that 100-bed number, we will endeavour to do so. We are looking at schemes to try and improve that at the moment, because we've been sort of inundated with that there is that demand for the aged care. I know other opportunities are being looked at by Arcare, hopefully in the Canberra region, which can hopefully assist with providing further facilities in the Canberra region.
Okay. Well, certainly if it's possible to follow up specifically around anything that's being identified in Gungahlin, we would certainly appreciate that. Do
you want me to just read from a tree canopy of 30% is a minimum standard, should be 50. We are looking at that tree, 30% tree protection on the site, or cover, sorry, tree canopy cover. In our design, I suppose 50, it should be 50 as open to interpretation, but we'll be hitting we'll be incorporating the design, the minimum standard requirement.
And just on solar cells for the aged care facility and elsewhere?
Look, we're definitely considering solar, both to the villas and to the aged care facility. Yes, definitely something that we're going through design development at the moment on the site.
Okay. All right, it is late. Any other final questions in the chat? I don't think so. I have put the link for the website in. Visit Gold Creek, yes, does indeed go through to the retirement by Lend-Lease site, but that's the short link goes through. Laurel, thank you for persisting through the technology. Sometimes this stuff makes you want to pull your hair out, and I do apologise that it seemed to have been frustrating at your end. Sarah, thank you for also joining and taking us through it. I'm certainly excited to be involved, very frustrated I couldn't get to the first engagement last Thursday, but looking forward to the next steps, whatever they may be.
Thanks, Peter.
All right. Good night, all. Thank you for those hardy souls, all 12 of you who have stayed to the end. I noticed a couple of our MLAs there, and I do thank them for their attendance and interest. It's been a great evening. Don't forget the next October we'll have the Minister for Planning along, and I'd hope that we get a good big crowd to, I guess, make it clear that we'd like to see more engagement and more engagements and community engagements and consultative processes like we've had for this site elsewhere in Gungahlin, where in fact it's all been pretty ordinary. So thank you all. Good night.
Thanks, Peter.
No worries, guys and gals. Team.
Good night. Thanks.